The Redmi K40 Pro is here. Let's have a look at the design, comparison with the Redmi Note 10 Pro, Mi 11, an ANTUTU throttling test, and my first PUBG action on this phone. Let's have a look. Hi guys, it's Frankie from Frankie Tech. Good to see you guys again, and here on the day after what was the craziest day in the history of my channel. Not only did we have the big global launch of the Redmi Note 10 Pro, but I also went to pick up this Redmi K40 Pro that I have here to share my initial review of this device. And what an incredible device it is. And what we're going to do in today's video is a mix of things. This is not my full in-depth review, but I do want to share my initial thoughts of this phone. We're going to do a design comparison with the Redmi Note 10 Pro and Mi 11. We're also going to watch some great content on this 120Hz display, sharing some of my initial camera samples, and then we're going to wrap up doing ANTUTU benchmarks and PUBG on this phone. We know the Redmi Note 10 Pro has made major waves, but this Redmi K40 Pro represents what a flagship Redmi Note 10 Pro could be. Is this flagship K40 Pro a device we're going to see launch globally? Let's have a look. But first, I want to quickly show you guys what was inside the box for this K40 Pro. There you see it. And there's our little dragon friend once again, lifting the lid. Here we go. And there you see designed by Redmi. There's your SIM ejector tool and your paperwork. And in this plastic is where you would have received this TPU case, pretty similar to the one that came with the Redmi Note 10 Pro. And what do we get inside the box? A USB-C to USB-A cable and a China plug. There we see it, 33-watt fast charger. Pretty basic unboxing for this K40 Pro. Talking about design, at 7.8 millimeters, 196 grams. I think this is exactly the same weight as the Xiaomi Mi 11, but it's all about this gorgeous knife edge back on this K40 Pro, and it is absolutely stunning. It's a very subtle color, and it goes from this kind of grayish to a very dark black here. You can almost not even see any color on this side, but it's a very unique look, and I do appreciate the subtle beauty of this phone. And here you see on the edges, you do have this plastic build quality, which almost feels like it's mimicking aluminum. It looks really good, and it's hard to describe, but you have a two-tone like plastic and then matte plastic, which makes it feel about as premium as you would hope a plastic edge phone would be. And now, of course, the big design comparison I've been waiting to do with this K40 Pro against a few more Xiaomi releases. Here's the Mi 11, and of course, now that it can be shown, the Redmi Note 10 Pro. And there you see these phones right next to each other. One thing you'll notice is that there's a very similar camera aesthetic on these phones, but the K40 Pro's camera, you can tell, is a bit more rounded off than the Redmi Note 10 Pros. You can really go either way, which one you appreciate more, but I think the K40 Pros is a little bit more premium looking than the Redmi Note 10 Pros. And here it is next to the Xiaomi Mi 11, and you can definitely tell Xiaomi is going for this rounded rectangle look. A very nice look for both of these phones. I probably like the K40 Pro's camera module a little bit more than the Mi 11's, but both are great and very modern looking designs. Now, of course, one thing I would have loved to see would have been a matte back, gorgeous satiny matte back that we have on the Mi 11, but it's going to be more similar here to what we see on this onyx gray Redmi Note 10 Pro, but both of these phones are more fingerprint magnety than the Xiaomi Mi 11. All in all, guys, the design of the Redmi K40 Pro I think is the most subtle but the most striking of these three, and the Redmi Note 10 Pro looks great and the Mi 11 does as well, but if you're going for a more subtle, classy type of look, I think you can't go wrong with this Redmi K40 Pro. But of course, one of the highlights of this phone is this 6.67 dot drop display, 120Hz, and here you see it next to the display of the Redmi Note 10 Pro. Can you tell which one is which? This is the Redmi K40 Pro, and let me tell you guys, I was trying to find a difference between these two displays. I could not find it. They're almost exactly the same. They're the same type of viewing angles, and to be honest, I think they're the same panel. But if you're comparing next to the Mi 11, yes, the Mi 11's display is just at another level with a slight curve to the edge. WQHD Plus does make a big difference, but both displays honestly are really good, and I think you'll be very happy with the display on this Redmi K40 Pro. And in case you were wondering, DRM Info, yes, we have L1 security level for wideband CDM on this phone, so HD Netflix compatible. It's an L1 party here on the K40 Pro. And of course, you notice here the big question you guys had, does this K40 Pro run Google Apps? There you see them fully working, no issues whatsoever. I did do a safety net status test, there you go, passed, as well. So that means just like the Xiaomi Mi 11 China variant, this K40 Pro has full Google capabilities, but I will also preface this by saying we are running MIUI 12.0.3. So what's going to happen with 12.5 on this phone, we don't know yet, but for now you can be sure you'll have Google Apps fully capable on this K40 Pro. Now there's a number of things I still haven't tested out on this phone, but one thing I definitely have tested is this side-mounted ARC fingerprint scanner, and you're seeing it there. How quickly is this scanner, man? You almost turn it off and it just wants to unlock immediately before going. It is a super fast, super accurate fingerprint scanner. I really do like these ARC scanners that they've included on both this K40 Pro and the Redmi Note 10 Pro. Now one issue I've run into is that you can't download Chrome on this Redmi K40 Pro. Have a look. I'm installing it once again, and once it's installed, it's going to say done. Go to the main home screen, and there's no Chrome available. Now obviously you need to get to the bottom of this, but if you guys have any advice of how I can get Chrome on this K40 Pro, do let me know. And with a 64 megapixel main camera, this is the IMX686. As I mentioned, the K40 Pro Plus is not going to be released until next month in China. So for now, this is the best K40 Pro camera that you can get. But overall, guys, I've been pretty happy with the results. And it's been gloomy here in Hong Kong, but I will be testing this camera out further. But for now, just have a look at these initial samples and hit me up in the comments. What do you think? And this is rear-facing video on the Redmi K40 Pro, shooting in 4K 30 FPS. And did I tell you guys it was gloomy in Hong Kong? Absolutely terrible weather for testing out cameras. But have a look at this sample and hit me up in the comments. What do you think? And this is front-facing video on the Redmi K40 Pro, shooting in Full HD 60 FPS. So I guess this is the max that we get on Xiaomi front video right now. But it looks pretty good. And of course, listen to the mics, hear how they sound. But hit me up in the comments, what do you think? And of course, I'll need to fully test out the battery a bit longer on this Redmi K40 Pro, but with a 4,520 mAh capacity, 33 watt fast charging, this should charge in about an hour, and it's going to deliver some pretty solid battery times, although maybe not to the level of the Redmi Note 10 Pro, which has a 5,020 mAh battery. But there's one thing we can do to test the battery right now. We're at 23%, and that's to do a mini ANTUTU throttling test on this Redmi K40 Pro. Well, I have just downloaded ANTUTU, and we're going to do this mini throttling test. I do have the CPU monitor here, which will be checking the CPU temps of this phone. Let's go ahead and get started. Alright, and there we see it, the first ANTUTU benchmark for the Redmi K40 Pro, 716,000. That's pretty incredible. And let's go ahead and check the CPU monitor while we're at it. 49 degrees. Wow, 45 after the first test. That is surprising. And it might mean, guys, that we're seeing a lot of the same issues that we saw on the Xiaomi Mi 11 on this K40 Pro. 43.7, 43.6. So you know what? Because this has reached so high, but that is a terrific score. Let's go ahead and do this one more time. Go ahead and screenshot this real quick, and let's test this once again. Alright guys, done with test number 2. Look at this, 669,000. So quite a dip here for this Redmi K40 Pro. But let's jump over to the CPU monitor. 53, and look what happened, guys. The screen has just dimmed 49. If you compare these results to kind of what I saw on the Xiaomi Mi 11, you will definitely start noticing that it's not much of a difference, guys. And it really does seem that some of those overheating issues we saw on this Mi 11 are now happening on this Redmi K40 Pro. Now, of course, this is just an initial ANTUTU throttling test. Overall, still impressive results from this phone, but let me tell you guys, it is pretty warm to the touch right now. And let's see battery life. How did we end up? 8%, 15% from 23 to 8 on this phone after 2 ANTUTU tests. And now let's go to it. Let's finally kill off this phone with some PUBG action on the Redmi K40 Pro. And here we go, guys, with some PUBG action on the Redmi K40 Pro. And just listening to these dual speakers, they sound really good. And I'm wondering if they're the same ones on the Redmi Note 10 Pro. We'll save that question for the full comparison coming up. But for now, let's go ahead and kill this phone off because we only have 7% battery left. And we're going to go ahead and do smooth extreme settings here. Go to realistic, disable anti-aliasing, and disable auto adjust graphics. Here we go. And let's get started. And it's time. It's time for the classic Frankie Tech swim test. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. Woo! Oh yeah. And at the plane jump, Adreno 660, just buttery smooth. And look at this punch hole, guys. It is absolutely tiny. You don't notice it when you're playing. Even from this distance, it barely registers. Let's get down to the surface, get some guns, get some action. And we're on the surface now. Time to get some guns. Playing at 60 FPS here on the Redmi K40 Pro. All right, we got some guns. Here we go. I see someone there. Take that. Booyah! First kill on the Redmi K40 Pro. So far, guys, buttery smooth, 60 FPS gaming on this phone. Just beautiful. And I got my ride. Let's get to the play zone, baby. And so far, so good, guys. And one benefit to these plastic edges, they don't warm up as much as on the Xiaomi Mi 11. So you have a slightly more comfortable gameplay experience on this Redmi K40 Pro. 5% battery remaining. Let's see if we can get a few more kills before this phone kicks the bucket. Here we go. Here we go. Oh yeah, I see someone there. Oh man, that was close. Take that. Did I knock them out? I did. I'm coming after you. Oh yes, 2 kills, baby. Here we go. Here we go. And it's been a while since I played PUBG here on the channel, but always a lot of fun with this iconic game on Frankie Tech. So guys, we've been playing now for almost 15 minutes, and let's go ahead and check the CPU monitor for this phone. How's it doing? 45 degrees Celsius, and you know what? It's still pretty comfortable to the touch, so unless I think you're doing some serious ANTUTU benchmarks, if you're gaming at smooth extreme settings on this K40 Pro, you shouldn't have too many issues. And been driving around for a while, I haven't seen too many people. Oh my gosh, they're shooting at me. Oh crap, oh crap. Oh my gosh, and they got me. They got me. Did not even see that person. Wow. Not the best initial gameplay here on the Redmi K40 Pro. But you know what? This phone played PUBG like a champ. And let's see how much battery we have left. 3%. And that pretty much wraps up this initial review, guys, of the Redmi K40 Pro. And checking the CPU monitor one last time. 45 degrees. You know, that's pretty respectable considering how long we played at 60 FPS smooth extreme settings. And I don't think this phone maybe overheats as much as the Mi 11, but we'll need to do a full throttling test on this phone next to the others to see how it compares. But anyways, initial impressions, guys, after 24 hours of this K40 Pro, what a beast of a device. And I truly think this will hit global markets. What will it come as? I do not know. Possibly a Redmi release or a Poco release, we don't know. But let me tell you for now, I really hope they do bring this gorgeous knife edge back to the global market because it is a beautiful device. Yes, it is a bit of a fingerprint magnet, but overall, this is the flagship Redmi Note 10 Pro. And despite how great that other phone is, if you want a flagship version of the Redmi Note 10 Pro, you have it here in the K40 Pro China variant. And stay tuned for more great content, including my full review and comparisons of this Redmi K40 Pro. It's going to be fun testing this one out. But hit me up in the comments. What are your thoughts on this Redmi K40 Pro? And are you waiting for the global release of this device? Hit me up in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. And that's it for this video. If you liked it, give me that thumbs up. And if you love the content of Frankie Tech, subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon for future updates. I hope you enjoyed this in-depth initial review of the Redmi K40 Pro. And this is where I leave you by saying, this is Frankie Tech signing off. Have a good one. Love this bag, guys. Love this bag.